Welcome to the Market Me podcast with your host, Mike Moll. Each episode of Market Me deconstructs real campaigns for actual businesses to improve their marketing efforts. Mike is the founder of Social Media House and a digital marketing consultant who teaches marketing strategy to executives and their teams from small business to Fortune 500 companies. Let's get started.
On this episode, we have Arian Ebrahimi from KASE Insurance.
Nailed it.
I got it right. Yes. Thanks so much for coming, man.
Thank you. No worries. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So tell me about the business.
What do you want to know?
A little bit of everything. How did it start? Where it came from?
So KASE Insurance is a commercial property and casualty insurance brokerage. We do things like liability, property, fleet insurance, professional liability, all the cool stuff that everybody wants to do. We specialize in the commercial sector. So we started in 2016. Myself and a partner, Stanislav Kujokin, another really easy name to say.
Got it. Glad he's not here.
Yeah. And we started just out of a shared office space. We had previously built up a book of business in a different brokerage we worked at, bought that book out, brought it over, and continued.
Got it. And so how does that work? Is it just, do you pay out based on percentage of what the premium intake is, or how do you buy the book of business out?
Yeah, so the revenues that any brokerage has usually has a set amount of a set buyout. It's pretty standard in the industry, so we just had to figure out what our book was bringing in and pay a multiple based on that.
Okay, cool. Is that pretty standard for people to kind of like grow their piece and then move up? I've talked to a couple of people that will take it and kind of like make a division within the same company. Like now I own the office, but it's still under the cooperators or this or that. Is it totally different than that?
There's lots of, insurance is so complicated. There's lots of different ways to do it. Cooperators, what they do is they're almost like franchise offices. Okay. So they pay royalties up into a big house. I'm not 100% sure about how it works. I've never worked at cooperators, but they pay for the branding. There's still a cooperator's office, but there'll be cooperators east or such. And there's lots of different ways to do it, but it's not too common to start up an insurance brokerage. When I say brokerage, I mean a REBO licensed brokerage. So a company that obviously is REBO licensed, but works with REBO, which is I messed that up.
It's like a governing body almost?
Yeah, basically.
Right. And do you have to, is it that you as the individual are compliant, or you have to like make the business compliant to that thing? Well,
you can't operate an insurance brokerage without having that license. So they have the guidelines as to what you're supposed to do and comply with. They're there for the public, so they want to make sure that brokers aren't just doing whatever they want and people aren't just buying products.
Right. I got it. And so now since 2016, you've kind of had it bought out. Now is it just you and one other partner that own it?
Yeah, so we own it, and we have there's actually 6 other people that work at KASE Insurance right now as well. 3 in sales and 3 in the service. So there's 3 people that bring in business in addition to me and my partner, and another 3 that help service and keep all the changes that happen in insurance, or any documents that need to be processed, or just ongoing support for the clients.
Got it. So to kind of bring value to people that may be like getting started or thinking about this type of space, how did you go about getting your first couple of clients? Was it kind of like they just fed me leads? Did you have to go and knock on doors? Like, how did you get your first kind of 10 clients?
You know what? It's actually not that sexy. When I started, and the same thing goes with my partner, when we first started just as brokers working for a different company, when you don't know anybody and your parents don't know anybody, and you have to figure out how to connect with business owners and get them as clients, we just started cold calling.
Nice.
Pick up a directory, start calling name by name. Hi, my name is Arian. Wondering if you'd be interested in saving money on your insurance or getting a second opinion. Doing that till you're blue in the face for months and months and months, building your network. A lot of people like to door knock as well. I tried it. I hated it. It didn't work for me at all.
Really?
Yeah, because you walk in the door and like the door says no soliciting.
Right.
And you kind of just pretend you didn't see it.
Right.
And the person's staring at you from over there as you're walking through in a suit.
Yeah.
And it's already off to a bad bad start. So
do you know the story behind the no soliciting signs?
no.
There's actually a company that went out and sold those signs door to door.
Oh, okay. Really?
So people were getting like fed up, and so this one company like pivoted and started making no soliciting signs and went door to door selling the no soliciting sign. It's
That's
like
genius.
looking, it's like
Yeah.
such a wild story.
Yeah.
Like tens of millions of dollars, absolutely crazy. But
Well,
yeah, that's funny. So I used to sell from the marketing side, and so we used to, I always found calling to be tough. I would just go in, and by the time you went into somewhere like 5, 6, or 7 times, they're like, oh, you again? Oh, you brought me coffee this time. Okay, I like you. You're like sweeten them up. But yeah, you can't, when you first go in, it's like super awkward, and they're just like, what the hell are you here to sell me?
Yeah, exactly. And it's worse. It's way worse in person when you're door knocking.
Yeah.
Cold calling is, to be honest, it's actually pretty easy because you're calling businesses that already have insurance, and then you're just asking them if they want to get a second opinion on it. So you get a lot of better responses. Obviously, some people get tons of calls. And ever since starting a business, I know that different vendors are calling me, but it's also part of what business owners go through. It's almost expected as part of daily routine.
Yeah. Do you get the SEO emails too?
Like people wanting for us to buy SEO. Oh yeah, I get them on LinkedIn. I get.
Yeah. I always love the one that start with greetings of the day. You're like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Is it $99 a month? I know it's coming.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So that that ramped up pretty like all the way through. I guess obviously you start getting some word of mouth and some other stuff that compounds in after that.
Yeah. So it's like I was saying, it started with cold calling, but then you also, once you have some meetings, you do some good work for clients and they trust you. You find a good way to ask for referrals, and you do other things like go to networking events. That's really the hard part about any kind of sales job. It's the prospecting.
Yeah.
I get a lot of LinkedIn messages now. I don't LinkedIn message, but I get a lot of LinkedIn messages, and some of them are this long, and I just think like, if you just called me and said, hey, how's it going? I want to sell you SEO, or no soliciting sign.
Yeah.
I'd probably hear what you have to say at least.
More so than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that I actually use quite frequently is like voice and video. So on LinkedIn, I just like send a voicemail, like a pre-recorded video, like audio message to you, so that when it comes into your inbox, you just see like a little play button rather than words.
Really?
Yeah, it trips people up.
How does it? Do people reply to it? Like
all the time.
How do you do that?
Because you can't. So when you're just in you're in the LinkedIn messages, there's like there's right beside the enter button, there's a microphone. You just hold it down and you just record audio, and you let go and it sends.
What do you say?
Hey, my name's Mike. I want to sell you some shit. Mostly I'm reaching out for people to come on the podcast, or just like I actually do it just as general correspondence.
Yeah.
Like instead of commenting on somebody's article, if it's someone I want to get to know, I'll be like, hey, I just read this article that you put out. Really cool, really great insights. Blah 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 blah. And I kind of just leave it, and then you like a couple months later, or a couple weeks later, you kind of like go back in.
Yeah.
But it's hard to ignore because it's like just literally a play button. And
I think most people are probably curious too, like, what is this? And it's actually pretty smart, because I can imagine it's pretty personal, especially when you're like, hey, how's it going? I read that thing. That's great.
Right.
I'd receive that pretty well.
Yeah. And on Instagram, even a step further, it's a video message. So it's like me selfie videoing and talking to them instead of just audio. In
their inbox or whatever. Mm-hmm. Oh, cool. Yeah.
Fun thing to play with.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
So now you've got a book of business, cold calling, networking, referrals. Sounds pretty standard for that industry.
Yeah.
So when do you decide to now go out? Like, just you've got a big enough pool of people, or you just like said, screw it, let's go?
Yeah. So I got lucky. My business partner and me clicked really well from the beginning. We worked at another company before we worked at the brokerage. Before we started KASE, we worked at a brokerage, and before that we worked at another company, an insurance call center. So we always had similar thinking, similar goals, and we just wanted to, from the beginning. It's like, you just start something, you get your first client, you're like, well, one day we'll start a brokerage, and we're gonna figure out how to make it. And then you get to your first X amount in premium, and then you're like this step closer. So there's no right time to go and start that sort of thing,
Right.
for sure. But it got to a point where we got the clients, we figured that part out, and it was just time for a new challenge.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. And so how do you think about marketing now? So obviously you've got some other salespeople, and then are you trying to generate leads to feed into them, or are you just pick up the phone, go get it?
No.
Yeah.
So that's a good point. Like the salespeople that work at KASE with us, they same path. They cold call. They got to get themselves out there, get their own name, their own brand out there. But we also do a lot to support them. So we hire 2 telemarketers externally that feed leads into the brokerage. So I just send them out to, either by territory, or if I think particular person is stronger in some industry, or if I listen to the call, and sometimes I listen to the call because it's all
Right.
recorded, and I think somebody will click well with somebody. I send that person to the meeting. So that's one way. So they're cold calling themselves, but there's also leads coming into the office. We also invest in our SEO and our Google Ads.
Nice.
So that when people are Googling certain industries, we come up on the first page. Especially organically, does matter, but we are getting leads that way. And same thing, distributing to the salespeople.
Yeah. How much of your kind of efforts go where? Like, are you kind of like 30% cold call, 20% Google? Like, how do you kind of allocate? How do you think about it?
It's just, it's been about a year since we started doing both the telemarketing program and the Google Ads. So we're sort of just putting half efforts into each.
Yeah.
And to support the salespeople. It's not like one is necessarily better than the other. It's just also the type of clients you get from it are different. So
Sure.
when telemarketers are calling, they're calling businesses who didn't necessarily know anybody was going to call them, didn't know anybody wanted to talk about their insurance, and they invite somebody in. Who knows how the meeting is, right? But when it's on Google, it's somebody actually looking for help with something.
Yeah.
Sometimes they need help, and it's because they have a big problem that's really hard to solve. So we're still in that phase where we're figuring out which one is better. But I think really having both gives us a good pool of everything.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and one thing about Google, like, even though it's intent based, in some industries, the people that are coming in from Google can sometimes be like big time price shopper versus the other way around too. Like, if you get someone to agree to a meeting, then at least they know, like, they have a sense of what it might look like. But sometimes on Google, it's like, well, what's your price versus I'm going to talk to 10 other people to find the price. So, and you're going to get a lot of that. We get a lot from a marketing standpoint.
Yeah.
It's crazy what people want you to do for whatever price. Like,
Yeah.
As you do. I guess insurance is a little bit more standardized because a premium's a premium depending on where you're buying it, I guess.
It is, but it's also that thing that nobody wants to have because they think they'll never use it. Right. So paying for any of it usually stresses people out in some way. The problem is if they come to us from Google and we're the 4th or 5th brokerage they've called, it gets really hard for us to help them because if they've sent all their information to a few different brokerages, we all work with similar insurance companies. 90% of the same insurance companies we work with. So if they're going to, Intact, Aviva, Travelers with one brokerage, and we go to Intact, Aviva, Travelers, those are some insurance company names.
I worked for Aviva.
You worked for Aviva?
For 6 years, actually.
How was that?
It's okay.
Yeah? All right.
Sorry,
okay.
Aviva. You were just okay.
Well,
it wasn't for me, but
Yeah. Well, they're one of our insurance partners, so they're amazing.
Good job.
So, along with everyone else, they actually operate on a first come first served basis. So if a brokerage sends information to Aviva, and then we send information to Aviva, they actually say thanks, but we've already been approached by a different broker.
Oh.
So the leads on Google always get qualified. Like, how many people have you talked to, and how many people
really interesting. I didn't know
have you
that.
given your information to at this point? And it sucks because people are doing the reasonable thing. They want to shop. They want to get some options. Every industry kind of works that way.
Yeah.
But every brokerage has its own relationship with the insurance company.
Right.
There might be a brokerage that is amazing at doing insurance for manufacturing, and they got really good relationships and lots of premium with a certain insurance company, and they're best friends with the underwriter and they get really good favors done, or they may have a horrible relationship with that underwriter and that insurance company, and they have lots of claims with that insurance company, and they get a decline. By the time we get there, maybe we could have done something different.
Right.
So it's hard to kind of know.
Do you know why they do that?
Why they
would block it, or is it like does that expire after a certain period of time? Like after 30 days, you can refresh the name in, or?
Well, you're only really quoting before the contract is up for renewal. So it's all that's the other, and I'll get to that. It's the other cool thing about our industry is that there's always a deadline and there's always something to work towards. So if you renew in May, you're shopping it in February, March, and April.
Got it.
If you call them in July, you just make a note to call them back and speak to them the next year.
Got it.
But the reason they do that is if it's sort of like what I said before. If they might have a certain relationship with one brokerage, and it's the same insurance company. They got contracts with two different brokerages. Why are they giving one price to one and one price to the other? They don't want to get in the middle of that. So what we can do to get around someone already approaching an insurance company is making them sign a letter appointing us as the official broker.
Right.
But once they've already given out an answer, that's the answer. They're not going to change it for a brokerage. So they don't want to get into a scenario where they have two insurance partners, but they're giving them different answers.
Right.
Good or bad.
Even though, depending on the entry point of the quote, it might be a better number.
What do you mean by the entry point?
Like you versus them, someone else, another brokerage sending it in. You might get some kind of a preferred pricing because of whatever relationship.
Exactly.
But once that's there, it's locked in across the board.
Exactly. So someone might have Aviva, but they do a lot of personal insurance, and that one commercial account came through, and they send it to to an insurance company like Aviva, and they say, please quote us, and there's not a lot of good information on there, and then they decline them, and then we might come in, we know exactly what to ask, what to say, and we come up with a really good request for a proposal, and they don't, and they give us something good. It would probably upset the other partners that they, maybe they've been working with them longer, but it's all really relationship based.
Right. It's interesting.
Yeah.
It's kind of a nuisance, but it does make sense. I mean, they get a bad enough rap as it is.
It's hard because, they do, and it's hard because, like I said, people just want to do what they do in every aspect of their business. Get options. Yeah. See what everybody has to say. Yeah. But you kind of have to pick a broker and have them get you options in the market. And every year, if you want to pick a different broker, pick one a different year. Right. Every year it renews.
Got it. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
What are you seeing as like your biggest areas of growth? Is there a particular product or a particular segment that's working well?
So we decided early on, even before starting KASE, when we started our careers as brokers, to only focus in the commercial space. What's happening is a lot of personal insurance is going online or going directly with carriers because there's not a lot to consult on and advise on when it comes to personal. Right.
How much stuff do you have?
Yeah, like,
the car worth?
Do you want theft on your car or do you not want theft on your car? Do you want a tow truck or do you not? It doesn't really get too complicated, but I don't see that happening in the commercial space anytime soon. Right. Businesses need a consultant. They need somebody to talk to them about their business, what's changing every year, what kind of things they can protect against, what new insurance products are coming out that they can sometimes utilize to get more financing from their bank. There's a lot that goes into every client that we have. So we always saw a big opportunity just growing in the commercial space.
Makes sense.
Focusing on
probably easier to deal with than homeowners. A bunch of whiny people.
Yes, and
I worked in personal, so I worked in the homeowners department for personal. Okay. So like house damage and thefts and stuff. People are so whiny about their shit. But the business, it's like, this is what's happened. Here's where we're at. They're not as emotionally tied to their like thing the ring that got stolen or the whatever piece. So. Well,
you know what? It's not just emotional. It's also me just kind of guessing or trying to put myself in the mindset of my clients. Is sometimes it's just where they're paying it from. So we could talk about saving them a whole bunch of money on the business insurance. We saved you, $20,000 this year on your overall policy by moving to this company, and everything's fine and dandy. But we're dealing with them on their cottage, and their cottage went up, $50 a month.
Right.
And all of a sudden it's a huge problem because, and I kind of get it because they're paying for that personally.
Right.
They're operating pretty lean. They're putting a lot of their legitimate expenses for the business.
Right.
And then they pay themselves a certain amount, and then all of a sudden on the personal side, they can't write it off. It's all coming out with after-tax dollars. Right. So it is more difficult to deal with them, but to deal with the personal market. But at the same time, walk into a busy room and every single one of those people can buy personal insurance from you. They can buy car and home insurance. That's a room full of prospects. Maybe there's a lot of competition out there, or maybe they're heavy shoppers, but there's a lot of prospects. Whereas you walk into a room full of people and maybe one will be a business owner.
Right.
Maybe you'll get lucky and they all are, but usually not the case. So less options available for prospects, at least random ones, but you can do well doing either. It's just where you want to put your focus.
Got it. And how are you thinking about growth? I mean, obviously you own this business now. You've got 7 or 8 people. What's the next step? How are you kind of mapping that?
So our what we want to do as a company is actually focus on put a lot of focus onto the service side of things. I don't mean like we want to have good customer service. I mean what I mean is the staff that we have servicing the business that salespeople bring in. We want to make sure that they're getting all the attention they need. They're getting lots of different resources. They're not getting spread out too thin. Right. We're building a good culture, mostly for them, and it kind of works both ways. We focus on the service side of things, then we can attract more salespeople that way. Salespeople can come in,
deal with less stuff.
Because salespeople, at the end of the day, what they want to do is they want to have lunch with clients for a living.
Right.
They want to have lunch, grab some papers, cool, make some notes, send the email off, and have everything done and taken care of. They want to focus on building new relationships and bringing new clients in. So, and I think a lot of offices, not saying wrongly, but a lot of offices actually go and they focus on the salespeople because those are the ones that bring in the clients. Yeah. But we're saying let's focus more on the service side of things, because ultimately, if the people that service the sales clients, the salespeople's clients, if they're happy, then the salespeople will be happy, because everything's going to be taken care of and everything's going to be done for them, so they can just keep bringing more clients in.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
I kind of took a look at like the web and some of the social and that. How are you guys thinking about content? Putting out content, like, as being able to attract people.
So we do have a lot of content come out. Like every month we release a few articles that our marketing people write. I know Google has to have its own language for its content, so you can be up there. But it's an ongoing process for sure. Like whether you want to, whether it's like keep updating the social media to keep showing what the people are like at the brokerage, and that we have fun and different things, or I've written a few blog posts that I haven't posted because I haven't had the chance to edit them properly, or they're never right. So it's always ongoing. Just trying to put as much out there, and also being aware that like probably not a lot of people want to read about my opinion on like certain insurance things. Probably not. You're probably on the right. So but I know some well, so it's just an ongoing thing.
Have you thought about a podcast?
I have. I'm really excited to be here so I can see how this all works.
Yeah. So I think it'd be really smart for you, because your clients have questions. They don't really care about the insurance. The real truth is that nobody cares about anybody's product or service until they need it. Yeah. Same thing with marketing. Nobody cares about my opinion about stuff until they're like, something's wrong, I need more clients. Help me with marketing. But I think, especially serving B2B, it's a little bit trickier for you because of the different industries that you service. But I do think there's some commonality amongst business owners in terms of like, how can I attract them? Like what could I be saying or doing, or who could I be interviewing to make this practical and useful for you in some way, right? And whether that's different like services that are out there for businesses that make their life easier, or different tools and resources, or different things in the marketplace that people would have an interest in. You don't have to know it. You could literally just interview people and ask them about it. But so the way I strategize the podcast is think about who you want to be your customer. Think about what questions you can answer for them or how you can make their life easier. That's the number one thing. Yeah. So I'll give you a couple of like random examples of other industries. So I was talking with a very large trucking manufacturer. I can't say their name, but they were trying to figure out, how do I get more drivers? Because if I get more drivers and fleet managers, but drivers specifically, because a lot of them are owner operator. If I get the drivers interested, then they'll buy our vehicles. So I was like, well, why don't you make like the trucker podcast sponsored by brand, right? And just like interview different drivers. Like you could even record, they could be on like Bluetooth, and you could record the episodes while they're driving about like the craziest things they've ever seen, or like what's going on in their adventures. Tell me about your life, because they could connect with other drivers, could hear about it. And then, hey, how do you get in touch? Oh, I'm on Twitter at whatever. So you could build like a network of like connected drivers by making the trucker podcast. There's nothing to do with the manufacturing of your vehicle, but it serves some of your end customer in some way. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah, it does.
So I don't know exactly what it is for you, but I think there's something. If you've got businesses that are, say, a particular size, we mostly serve people in the like $10 to $20 million. That's the size of the company. Obviously, there's going to be some lower and some higher. But if you took kind of the median, like here's the majority of our clients fit this profile. They tend to be males that have a $10 million business, that this, like whatever the most common traits amongst your existing customers or amongst your ideal customers. Because sometimes your existing isn't your ideal. Yeah. But if you build that profile of like, who's that person you want to speak to, and let's talk to it like we're speaking to that one person. That's a really good place to start when you're strategizing. Because when you write content or you do podcasts or you make video, if you're trying to service all the business owners, you're not really talking to anybody. Yeah. So if you said, Mike, you're my ideal customer, it's the small business that needs consulting that we can help scale up. So you make me as a persona and you make the content for me. Because what happens is people will fall in line with that. But if you're talking to me, then it feels like it's a directed conversation, or I'm bringing value directly to you, or I'm out to help you specifically. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I also like some of the things I thought about were that I'm not sure how shareable like insurance content is. It's not. It doesn't sound that, I know that I don't watch insurance content videos. Right. So I think there has to be for sure a second focus. There has to be a second part to it. It can't just be like I'm an insurance broker and we have good coverages. Yeah. I think
that should actually be 0% of the content.
Yeah.
It would actually be better if you had the whatever business podcast brought to you by KASE. So it's like sponsored by or brought to you by. That way what you could do is you guys have a lot of personal relationships with the business owners that a lot of these people have been around for a while. You know who their families are. I'm imagining, right? You're pretty close with some of the clients. Yeah. And so figuring out, okay, how can I make their lives easier? Is my person the average? Like, are they commuters? Are most of the people are taking the train into work? Are they executives, or are they salespeople? Are they out in their car all the time? Like, figure out the length and the style of content based on those things, based on what you know about the customer and what will bring them value, whether that's comedic value or informational value or motivational value or inspirational value. It could be any of those things. So you could have a show that interviews business owners on how they grew their companies or how they whatever. Like, I'm doing it from a marketing lens. You could do it from a strategy or an investing lens, or even ask them about marketing, like whatever would serve the majority of the people that would be in your pool of customers. Because if you can make their lives easier or make them feel smarter or make them feel like inspired or make them laugh, whatever that thing is, it doesn't matter the insurance content is irrelevant, because what you can do is, halfway through the interview, you could read in an ad. Like, podcasts have those read-in ads. This episode is brought to you by KASE. KASE does this and this and this. Need insurance? Call KASE. Like, whatever so you could read a 30-second read into the middle of your show or at the beginning, or just announce at the beginning that it's brought to you by. Because then as it builds audience and it's helping people, then they may start to look it up. They go on their phone. You've got, your show notes have links to the website. So it creates links to you, which is nice as well, like from YouTube or social media. It's creating backlinks to your website because you're posting that content. And if you interview people, this is the key. If you interview people, they're going to share it on their website, social media, wherever else. So then that creates additional backlinks from other people to you, not just from your entities to yourself. So it's really powerful, even for from some of the SEO standpoint of, one podcast a week or bi-weekly or whatever that is, having 2 to 4 backlinks to your website a month is it's great. Most people can't get that on their best month by making amazing content and trying to guest post it. Most people can't even get someone to post it. So it's a really easy way, because they're I was on this show, I was interviewed here. And then they're excited to share it, and then you also get the backlinks from it. So it kind of helps you both ways.
That's a good point.
Makes sense?
Now I just got to sound interesting. Now I just got to find a way to sound interesting as well.
You can, I think, so the way I did this from the beginning, I've kind of got a mixed thing now. So some people are coming on and I'm giving some marketing guidance. Some people are coming on with really established marketing backgrounds, and I'm letting them share their information. And I like the mix. Sometimes I can be of value. Sometimes the other person brings more marketing ideas to the table, and it creates a good mix. But you could do something where you're just facilitating the conversation. If you don't want to be the host, maybe what you do, there's a podcast called The North Report. So they host a thing where they ask the same 4 questions to every person. And so it's always what's going to be asked, and then the different person that's answering them brings the dynamic of the show. But they don't have to be overly making things up or coming up with topics on the spot. I know what the questions are going to be. So I'll ask, and I might elaborate on one piece, and I say, cool, question number 2 is this. So you actually let them guide the content of the show if you don't want to be hosting in a way where you're it's just free form.
You said the North Report, right? The
North Report.
Okay. All right, I'll
so
check
they
it
do
out.
one. Yeah, and there's a decent amount of podcasts that do it where they here's our standard questions, and it does alleviate a lot of the pressure from the host. I know what I'm going to ask. People know what I'm going to ask. They're used to it. They just want to see how the person across the microphone responds.
Yeah.
So take some of the pressure off, and then at least it's a good way to get started, and then you can always divert from it,
Yeah.
But the nice thing about it is making longer form stuff, you can then use it and chop it up for social media. You can make little clips with little audio bubbles, or you can, if it's video, like I was telling you before, we use Zoom. So it records both of our faces. So you can chop those up, post them on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. It gives you just
so you have
more
ongoing content that you can release at different times.
Yeah. So each episode we make at least 6 to 8 pieces of content. So we could technically, because we do 1 episode a week, we could technically post 1 every day. We would have 1 social, relevant, high quality social media post every day of the week if we wanted.
Right, because you got 1 for every day, basically.
Yes, but we bank them. We'll post 3 in that week, and then we'll save the videos to use intermittently.
Cool.
So it's because I don't really like the idea of having 7 posts in a row that are all about the same person. Or whatever. It's kind of weird. So we'll do 3, and then we'll save a month later. We'll do 1 other video, and then so it spreads it out.
Yeah,
but we're sitting on we've done. Maybe I think we're close to 50 episodes now.
Really?
So we're sitting on an enormous amount of
I'm
content.
not 50, am I?
I don't think so. I'm not sure. I don't pay that much attention. I just remembered we were we posted 44 the other day. I have no idea.
Okay, fair enough.
But yeah, so if you think about 50 episodes, even times 5 pieces of content.
Yeah.
We're stacked for a while.
Hundreds of videos.
Hundreds of videos.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. It gives you a lot of ammunition, because a lot of people, to post and come up with social content is a whole other animal, right?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
So.
Yeah, I have been thinking about it, like I said, but it's I don't want to just start making insurance videos. I think you're right. Like, it has to be almost, if not zero, like almost 0% of it.
Now, I think there is some value where, you know, if someone doesn't understand the investment angle of a certain insurance product, there's something there. And I don't know if you sell anything that's like that, or if that's more like the financial side.
That's more the financial side.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, then don't do insurance.
Yeah.
But
people don't really want to know about how like their tenants' legal liability should be increased to like they don't want to, I don't even want to finish a sentence.
I understand. But, you know, there are some things within culture that I think you could play on. So, for example, like with Airbnb, right? There's all these issues around if something like all these parties and people are getting shot. Like that was recently. So now Airbnb is banned party. Like I don't know how they're banning it, but it was like so. Understanding the liability of Airbnb. So there's topics of insurance that you could talk about where it's like, you know, if you have a property and you're doing this, again, it's more personal lines than business, but like maybe like this, if it's zoned commercial and then you're renting it out, what are the implications? If stuff happens, who's responsible? Could your policy say, sorry, it's not happening, you're excluded?
Yeah.
You know, so there's maybe some stuff within culture that may make sense to deploy insurance conversations around. So it might work here and there.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. Like, because at the end of the day, like, I can make insurance interesting. Like, there are a lot of reasons why insurance fits into like different, hot topics and such. But it's just a matter of someone actually deciding to click on an insurance video and listen to it that I'm not really sold on.
Sure.
Mostly because I don't do that.
Right. But you could maybe speckle them in here and there.
Yeah.
But I think if you, similar to every piece of content you put out, if your goal is to serve a persona that matches the customer you want, that's how you're going to win. So every blog post, every podcast, everything that you do should be saying, my ideal customer looks like this. I built a persona. I know the name and the age, where they live, and if they have kids. Like you're really just talking to the one buyer persona. If you make everything to make their life easier, a whole pool of people will start falling in behind. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes all sense.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, cool. Any other thoughts?
This is a really cool setup. It's I didn't know what to expect, but it's pretty impressive, and you do a good job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
There we go.
All right.